Hello and welcome to the WDW Fan Zone Show. I am Stuart Sternberg. I'm joined by John Maloney and Darlene Nagy. And on this episode, we're going to discuss a little thing that's controversial. But before we get into that, I want to mention that I was at Walt Disney World on Wednesday. I was in Epcot, and today I was at SeaWorld. And I don't understand it, but there are kids all over the place. Like today at SeaWorld, it looked like a lot of school trips were there. But there were tons of parents with kids there. It's like, and it's same thing at Epcot on Wednesday. Doesn't anybody go to school in classroom anymore? I just wanted to mention that because I think that might be one of the reasons why the parks have been so crowded lately, is because there are a lot of kids that would otherwise be in school that are still taking advantage of virtual learning and coming to our parks. And you know what? I hope they're getting an education as well as the fun factor too while they're there. Something else I wanted to mention about SeaWorld, they've got food booths out now, and I think it runs through May 1st. And their portions for their sample food selections are a little bit bigger than Disney's, and they're so good. I think it's better than the food Disney's offering. It's a little more simplistic than when you'll get at Disney, but I think the food is just excellent. One more thing about SeaWorld that shocked me. I had fish and chips there today. And their fish and chips, I like better than what I can get anywhere on Disney World property. There was less bread to the batter than you get at Disney and more fish. That's not to say Disney's are bad. Disney's are excellent. I just thought this was a little notch above Disney's.
I've never had the fish and chips in Epcot or anywhere in Disney.
You got to try them. They're really good. But I would recommend the ones at SeaWorld better. I forgot the name.
Think of what you just said.
What, the fish and chips at SeaWorld? I didn't say no. Hold on, Darlene. I didn't say that the ones at Disney were bad. I just said I would recommend the one at SeaWorld over the one at Disney.
It went right over his head, John.
Yeah, she's afraid that they're taking some of their attractions and serving them up for dinner.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, maybe they are.
Well, they'd be fresh.
No, we know they're not. I don't want to.
I mean, we're talking SeaWorld is fish related.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's more than just fish. There's other animals there.
Keith and I ate at the one restaurant there. There wasn't much open when we went. And we thought the food was okay, but we both prefer Disney food. I don't know about the kiosks, though.
We ate at two other places there today as well. It doesn't, except for the fish and chips, nothing came close. But the food booths, like I said, you're getting a bigger portion. And I thought it was very good, but a little more simplistic than with Disney. Disney gets a little more creative with their food.
How were they priced?
$7.99 to, if I remember right, I think it was $11.99.
Okay, so comparable, same as Disney.
It's if you purchase 10 samples, that they're calling it samples, it's $80 at SeaWorld. So you're basically you could spend up to $120 for 10 samples, or about 100. So, it is comparably priced.
So you have to pre-purchase?
No. Well, yes. Well, no, you don't, but it saves money if you do. It's an option. I would pre-purchase if I were going there for that.
So that kind of sounds like what they do for the Swan and Dolphin.
It could very well be. I haven't been there.
It kind of sounds like that. Because I mean, your Disney food or Flower and Garden kiosks and your Food and Wine are all individually.
Yep.
So you can purchase 2, 1, 5, 10, 20. And
I think you can do that here too, but I didn't really pay attention, honestly.
Oh, okay. Okay. Good to know. Thank you.
All right. Anyway, let's get into the topic. So for those listening, as you know, recently the state of Florida, and I'm totally against this bill. I want to put that out up front. This is me personally, totally against this bill. It's become known as the Don't Say Gay bill. Anytime you pass a bill that creates discrimination no matter what the age. It just boggles my mind that in this day and age, in our lifetimes, we're seeing these bills starting here with Florida, and I know other states are considering it. It's nuts. Walt Disney World, which is one of the most inclusive companies you can find anywhere on the planet, did something I don't agree with what they did. They came out publicly saying they were against the bill. And here's why. And you know what? It's okay to do that internally with your employees when you're a corporation. But as a business, I feel you should not get involved in the political side of it publicly. I think what they could have done, which might have prevented what's going on right now, and we'll get into that too, from happening, would have been if a memo went around to the employees. Maybe it did, not working there. I wouldn't know about this, but my assumption is by them going publicly, this didn't happen to this extent. They should have sent an email out to their employees that we're behind you. Look how much we're doing for you. We'll continue to include you in everything. We won't discriminate. We back you 100%. They should have gone a step further and said, we will be in contact with the governor's office to privately show their displeasure, not bring this out publicly, but privately show their displeasure and try to work with the governor's office, which would not happen, but to get it to not be passed, to prevent it from being passed, which the governor never would have listened to them. But it would have shown an effort on Disney's part, like, hey, we're going to work behind the scenes and we're going to fight for you behind the scenes, and also encourage them to publicly, as individual employees, to state their case with the governor's office in the state of Florida. I think that would have ended it right there. Then they also, and I'm not going to get into this at all, but I just want to mention, they also pulled their political funding for Republican candidates in the state. Okay, so that's where I think Disney went wrong, and where I think they could have prevented something from happening. The governor's office here, I think what he did, I'm not going to mention his name, and I want to, little aside here, I think we're seeing this in politics now on both sides, from the Republicans and the Democrats. I can't stand this. You have the far right, the far left, but everybody is playing to a base, not what the majority of the American people want. They're playing to a base for votes. Instead of fighting for their beliefs and their constituents' beliefs, they're fighting for their egos. They're fighting for power. And it's sad to see what's going on in politics in this country from both sides. I'm not saying all politicians are like this, but I think there's a lot more these days than there were 10 years ago doing that, not getting into the political game because they actually want to help people and make this country a better place to be. Having said that, we know our governor here is vindictive. We know he can do things that will irk people in many ways. And we know he wants a future in national politics, running for president someday. Something I think he should realize, though, and maybe he has thought of this, is that he's up for election this year in Florida. Yes, Florida is a red state. But if the election, will this affect him if what he's done, taking on Disney, will it affect him if it's a close race at the end with his national ambitions? We don't know yet. There was something else I wanted to mention here too. I didn't write anything down, so just bear with me for a moment. What was I saying again? It was the national elections. Blah, blah, blah. Sorry, guys, I'm having a brain fart right now.
Well, where do you think it's going to go ultimately?
Ultimately, I think it will. Well, oh yeah, that's where I wanted to go. Disney. This is where Disney's made the latest statement that I've heard, was that he's wrong in his assessment that it's going to lower taxes for the people of Osceola and Orange County. that this is a win-win for the state. No, it's not. The bonds have to be called or paid off. The debt has to be paid off for Reedy Creek. Reedy Creek is the governing body for the area where Disney's located. Self-governing body, I might add. So it's $1 billion. Where's that money coming from? So Disney, the last I've heard, is planning, and they haven't done anything yet. They haven't come. I don't think they've come out and publicly stated this yet. And if they have, then I'm incorrect. But my belief is that they're going to take this to court because they believe that that the only people that can dissolve Reedy Creek is Reedy Creek, and that if the debt's not paid off, the governor's office doesn't have a right, or the state of Florida doesn't have the right to do this. I think eventually the two sides are going to settle somehow. I don't know how that's going to happen. Both sides are going to want to come out looking like winners and not like they caved. So I think it's going to be difficult, but I think eventually they'll reach that point where they'll see that it's better for all sides that they do come to some kind of settlement. But I think we're months and months away from that happening. So, that's just my opinion on this. And I want to hear what you guys have to say and what information you bring so our listeners can see other sides of this. John, would you like to go as the out-of-state person, seeing it from a totally different perspective?
Yeah. So looking at it from a removed perspective, since I come from out of state, and certainly it relates to Disney, and it's certainly very much in the news. So I've certainly seen a bit about it, read a bit about it, and certainly the Reedy Creek Improvement District has had a long history in the development and execution of Walt Disney World. So and I'm not a lawyer, so I certainly can't have an opinion there other than I agree with you. I think it's going to be contested in the courts, and so it's ultimately going to come down to what do the courts say. I don't think it becomes effective until sometime next year. Is that
June 2023?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
and I think they have until January to resolve this of next year.
And so maybe that is by design. So the thing that there's a number of things that bug me, but I hate to see. I wish that if there was something that was important and was going to help people, that legislators could pass legislation that quickly, as compared to, I'm not happy with this corporation over here, and to, in your words, I'm going to be vindictive, or I'm going to increase my own political capital by going after them. So, that's politics in its worst. I think it is, if you're not doing something, as you say, to help your constituents, to help all constituents, of your state, then why are you doing it? So I think from that perspective, it's a waste of time, and it's a shame as compared to doing things that are going to help everybody. Build your own political capital, be vindictive, and be spiteful. So it's certainly non-productive. Getting beyond the content of how things got started, but and to your point, I think Disney had several missteps for how it even got there. So it certainly could have been handled much better by Disney. I'm glad that Disney's is speaking up for their cast members. Does it belong in the political arena? From a corporation. I don't head corporations either, so that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's something I do want to mention about, when you run a corporation, there's no such, and I'm talking about a corporation and their employees. No matter how much you want to back your employees, no matter how much you want to do for your employees, there's no such thing as fair. You have a business to run. You have to do, and this is always going to be the case, you're always going to do what's best for your business. Yes, you want to keep your employees happy, but by trying to keep, and I don't know what the percentages are of their employees that fall into the category that are against this bill for very good reasons, you look at the monster that was created by a couple of missteps that probably could have been avoided if this was done behind the scenes. It wouldn't have worked because we know they were going to pass this crappy bill that never should have been passed. It's just, and I can't get over this, that it's like this day and age, there's laws that are being passed or regulations that discriminate against people, that purposely discriminate against people. And I don't care what age it is. It's discrimination.
Well, that was the impetus behind it.
Yep.
And
it's okay for Disney's employees to be angry. They should be. It's okay for Disney as a corporation to be angry, but don't let it out in public. Not the employees, the corporation.
Yeah. So where it's going to go, it's certainly going to take a long time. Yeah. My read of it being non-political and being from outside of the state, it certainly seems as if it is for the shorter term. And when I say shorter term, it's certainly going to extend into next year, and certainly, as you indicated, where the governor has aspirations goes beyond next year. But it's political grandstanding right now.
Yeah, and you know what? No matter, and I don't want to say no matter what happens, but in most cases, he's going to come out looking like the winner in all this. And let me explain that. It's like if Disney wins in court, he could say, hey, look, I tried. I went after him. I wasn't afraid. The courts took it away from what I wanted to do. If they settle, he's going to make sure he comes out smelling like roses. And both sides are going to probably try to do that as well as they can.
And it would certainly be preferable, in my opinion, for a leader at that level to be representing the interests of everybody, in your state, not to, like you say, picking your base. And I am going to do everything and I see the same thing up here in the political races that are going on right now. Everybody is, belittling each other and playing to their base. They're not reaching out to the entire state.
Yep, and I just want to add to this because I agree with you. It's not just our governor here. He's doing what almost every politician is doing. It's the new politics. It sucks because the majority of the people in this country are getting shut out. No matter what it's the far right or the far left that are having their voices heard. And it's those bases that are being cowed. What's the word? Cowed down. I can't pronounce it. Yeah, that's it. By the politicians and the people who are in the middle or the moderates are just left blowing in the wind.
Well, so where do you think Disney is going to go in the long term? Keeping in mind, these large corporations, including Disney, they've always had a hand in politics because they're making donations.
Yes, absolutely right.
Making political donations to candidates, and
on both sides. Let's not say it's one or the other. They both candidates.
Yeah. So it's curious, or I'm curious to see, where do they go from here? Do they, does this become a more common occurrence on their part, or are they just going to try to manage this and try to avoid it in the future?
Now, Darlene, I want to hear your opinion on all this too, but I think you can answer John's question. Their recent hire at Walt Disney World.
Their recent what?
Hire at Walt Disney World.
Oh, well, I mean, the problem with everything right now with hiring.
All right, sorry, I'm going to stop you for a second. I'm sorry. So Disney recently hired I think it was a senior VP of media relations. What's that tell you?
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, that person had no timing to even look at anything. And
that person is there now. So going forward, those missteps have another layer to go through and get vetted before something does something dumb.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, Darlene. Let's have your opinion on the whole matter and everything. I apologize.
I mean, I've worked in a few different venues over my lifetime. And politics was one thing that was never brought into uh, our corporations or businesses. Nobody asked what was what. The owners ran it, and that's how it was. Um, the way the whole bill and how Disney handled it, I don't even think it should have been. I don't think anything should have ever have been said. Is
Mhm.
is my way of thinking. I
Right.
don't think anything should have been said. I don't agree with the bill. I don't. um, the whole thing with Disney. Now we have to remember, um, Disney came into Florida. They He was trying to.
He,
Walt Disney many years ago came into Florida to build a beautiful park for families to come with their children and come together to share in the happiness. He picked Florida, and back then in 1967, I believe it was, they came up with the Reedy Creek government and everything. All this was put into place back then. You want to call something, say, grandfathered? We're grandfathered. And this should not even be happening. You want to level a playing field and make everybody start paying. It's There's a lot of little nooks and crannies that are going to have to be now drawn into this whole thing. Utilities and taxes and stuff, and they're going to have to go places. But the debt that I've heard that is out there, I don't think Florida can pay for it, and I don't think Disney's gonna pay it because this was the plan all along. So, it's a really tough situation, but, I just I don't agree with anything, and I've been watching the news the past couple days knowing that we were gonna be doing this, and
Mhm.
it keeps going back and forth, and people are getting upset, you know? There's roughly, I think, just there's like 80,000 employees probably just for
Yeah.
resorts. And you've got to think of that when you're messing with a company like Disney or Universal or Busch Gardens. I mean, you're talking about people's livelihoods.
Yeah. I don't know how much consideration that was given, other
Sure you
than,
do.
hey, I'm going to
Sure
take,
you do know how much. Sure you know how much consideration it was given.
yeah, none. Yeah. Well, that's what I meant by that. There's the whole infrastructure of Disney. Should
Hmm.
should Reedy Creek be scrutinized a little bit more than they are from the state of Florida to make sure that their books are accurate? Yeah, probably. But should the state of Florida take it over and assume that debt, which is going to be a lot of it's going to be placed on the hands of Osceola and Orange counties? That's
Hmm.
$1 billion they have to pay off in bonds if they want to take it over. Does the governor want to go down that road? Now, on the other hand, where's Disney going? They're too big to leave this state. They're not going to just get up and pack their bags and
And
move to
close everything
Colorado.
down
Yeah,
and
it's not
have.
going to happen.
I mean,
And
how many acres is that? That
yeah,
would
you know
be
what?
just sitting empty?
The governor knows that too. He knows
They
they're not going
can't
to leave.
afford the state can't afford that. There's enough
Nobody
abandonment around here. I mean,
But
you drive down any given road in the area, and you're going to find boarded up houses and stuff like that they need to start like doing something with.
can. Well, and Elon Musk can't afford it anymore, so
right.
Yeah, no, he can't now that he just bought Twitter.
you know, uh, the governor here is, from his base, is being applauded. Not, and I'm not going with this. This is something else, with how he handled the pandemic. You look at California and you look at Florida, and yes, there were a lot of cases here, a lot of deaths. But look at the economy in California, and you look at the economy in Florida, and the economy in Florida is near the top of the states. I don't know what number exactly in the U.S. since the pandemic started, where California's at the bottom. So people are looking at that. So that's feeding into everything he is doing and wants to be. When I say doing, I mean his national aspirations. Um, so he's kind of been, and I'm not saying I agree with any of what he's done or how he's done it, but it's kind of making him feel almost, and I don't know this to be true, but it appears this way, like he's almost invincible politically right now. That could change tomorrow, as we all know. There have been scandals with congressmen and senators, and it happens. They get so much power, and I'm talking about both sides. They get so much power that they forget why they were elected to office in the first place, and they lose sight of what the job is, and they think they're invincible when it comes to doing whatever they want. There was a governor in the Northeast who had to resign because he thought he was immune to everything.
Mm-hmm. You all know.
Yeah. So, it's just, this is the political game these days. This is how things are done, and it's not good. And only the American people can change it by getting out and voting. Make your vote count. No matter how difficult some states try to make it for you to vote, get out there and vote. Vote who you think is going to do best for you. And you know what? A lot of us will probably say nobody. But, sometimes it is picking the lesser of two evils. Sometimes it's picking someone we think really is going to try. But only we can change it. Now, anyway, getting back to Disney.
Well, and I mean, I think it's a long way from Reedy Creek Improvement District being dissolved.
Yeah, I think so.
Uh, I think there's lots of reasons to say it's unlikely that's going to happen, but let's
Mm-hmm.
or what do you hear down there as to what the impact would be to Disney if it did? So they might have to go through more red tape if they want to, build an attraction or build a new park or
Fix a road.
build a new flyover ramp, for their traffic patterns, those kinds of things.
Yeah, road needs repair. It could be water main breaks. It could be as simple as those things. They can't just go ahead and fix it the next day. It's got to go through a process, which is much different than we're seeing now. But how does that affect Orange County, as example,
Right.
one of the counties that are there? Do they have the power to handle that?
Well, and that's the thing. It's like a lot of those roads, I mean, when you're on Disney property, all those roads are basically maintained by Disney, and look at how long it's taken to do the I-95, the I-4. And now they're working on the 417 and the 429. I was on
Those are the roads in and out and around Walt Disney World for those.
right. And you don't see people actually working on them half the time because, you can't let the roads in Disney or around any theme park because you will not have people coming if you're going to be getting potholes and stuff.
Well, go ahead, John.
I was just going to ask, and I know they're very different because the amount of property that Disney owns versus what Universal owns. But I wonder if there's any way to compare Universal and their construction and how long it takes them to do things versus Disney.
Yeah, and I also wanted to mention, I think Universal has one, but I'm not positive of this, but there were, I think, about 5 excuse me, special tax or district entities in the state of Florida. Disney's just one.
Yeah, I know there's others. Mm-hmm.
So how does that affect them? Are they going after just Disney? Now, and if they are, doesn't that strengthen Disney's case in court that here they're picking Disney out and not doing anything about the others? Or does it affect all of them? The Villages is one. How does it affect them?
Oh yeah, I mean the Villages I have family that live there, and they said, their little itty bitty The Villages is now like its own
Well,
county.
they're
Right.
incorporated,
That's
aren't they? I mean, they're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
That's why
Yeah.
I believe it will get worked out at some point somehow. I don't know how it's going to get worked out. I think however it gets worked out, each side is going to want to come out looking like the winner. Nobody's going to want to come out looking like, oh, we screwed up and it's our fault and we're sorry. Nobody's going to say that.
Well, and each side has its own dynamics for what they're trying to accomplish.
Yep.
So, certainly Disney wants to, be supportive of their cast members. They want to be, fiscally responsible. They want to be able to make a profit. They want to be able to, maintain some autonomy when it comes to development. So they've got a number of things they're looking at, where on the other side, it's really a politician and support
Right,
politicians that want to look good for.
Yeah, it's looking for votes nationally, not just here in the state of Florida. Now, what I'd like to know, and I don't expect anybody to answer this, I'd like to know who made the decision to go public with this and not thinking clearly through this, that, when you talk about missteps and saying, okay, what's going to happen if we do this? Nobody's going to react. The type of person we have here running the governor's office. You thought he was going to sit back and do nothing? I mean, you got to think these things through. Yes, you want to help your employees out, like I've stated, during this show, but do you want to cut your corporation's throat by doing it? I don't think that was ever the intention. I don't think anyone ever saw this coming. And that's the problem. No one saw that this was coming.
Yeah.
And that's something that should have been the first thing on somebody's mind. If we do this, how are they going to react?
Right.
Well, and Disney has had their share of these events over the last year or two where they're getting bad press. When talking about working with actors, talking about changing policies and pricing, getting into the politics here. There's and I mean Disney's a high profile corporation, so they're certainly much more prone to it. But I certainly don't keep track of the things over the years, but it certainly seems like there have been a number of these high profile events lately that give Disney a black eye.
I've worked in the finance industry for years before I retired. And I know of one place in particular, actually I know of a few of them. Political donations were made to both sides of the aisle. If they ever needed a favor, it was done privately and quietly, and nobody knew about it. By taking things public and taking a stand the way they did, right or wrong, and I agree with Disney's stance. I don't think they should have made it public. But when you do that, you're opening yourself up for what's happening right now. And it's not just the fight with the governor's office, it's bad publicity. As many people as there are that love Disney, you can find some that don't.
Yeah.
that, hey, wow, they're going after the big bad wolf, being Disney's the big bad wolf. Where someone else is looking at it as the governor's the big bad wolf. It's the two sides have to get to a table, and it should be done privately, and figure out how do we get out of this mess. And I think Disney right now it looks more like a mess for Disney than it does for the governor, because right or wrong, and I think he's wrong, and how he's doing this is wrong. It hurts him a lot less than it hurts Disney right now.
Well,
that's just my opinion.
I would definitely agree with that.
Yeah,
Me
I don't
too.
know. I don't know how they're going to come about it. They'll find a way. They have to find a way. Otherwise, it's not going to be good for Disney. It's not going to be good for the employees. It's not going to be good for the people who live in the counties where Disney's located.
Right.
Yeah,
well, and to your point, even if Disney works through the courts or whatever, and they reach a settlement, or the courts find in Disney's favor, the stunt or whatever it was, has already had its effect.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that the governor is going to lose, even if Disney wins, which
I agree with you. I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
How are the stockholders feeling about all this? They can't be happy. It's a lose-lose situation for Disney, no matter how you look at it. I think if they could go back and do things differently, I think they would have. I don't know how they would have handled it, but I think they would have done it much differently. You know what I feel bad for the most, besides the residents of those two counties, are the employees of Disney. It's those who belong to and I'm going to get the initials wrong, so I'm not even going to say it, but who belong to the alternative lifestyle community. Their voice is not being heard. As a matter of fact, they're being told to shut up. That's not right either. Has this country gotten too politically correct? Absolutely. When you can't have comedians tell jokes without getting lambasted, that's wrong. And I know that's a little different topic for a different day, but everybody's afraid to say anything now. But people shouldn't be discriminated against, and they should have a right to call themselves whatever they want. And maybe at a certain age they don't know yet, but in time they will. But don't take that opportunity away from them. Let them think freely, so they can make those decisions and not be afraid to make those decisions, and to be able to shout it out at the top of their lungs and let everybody know who they are. And as a society, we're failing everyone.
So here's a question I have.
Mm-hmm.
If the things go the way some people want them to go, what about all those new things that are supposed to be coming, like that new housing and all that, and all the
New housing where?
There's new housing supposed to be built around Disney, and I think
But not by Disney. You're talking
I
about
think it's in the Hamlin area for the employees and stuff.
and
There's
Western Way. Pulte's building in Western Way. They might be paying higher tax. Even though the governor's saying their tax is going to down BS, they're going to be paying higher property taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's playing with facts, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, all politicians do that, as we all
well,
know.
yeah. Welcome to the world of politics.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world of stumping.
We're in a recession, but yet nobody wants to talk about us being in a recession because they deny we're in a recession. Yeah, right. Inflation's at what are they saying? Inflation's at now? It's got to be triple whatever they're saying it is. But yeah, I don't know how Disney gets out of this. I can think of a few ways, but I don't want to mention them on the show because it'll hurt feelings, and I don't want to do that.
But so getting out of it, though, is really multiple things, isn't it? So getting out of it is, so at least what I see is, how do you either undo or improve the improve the public relations, and improve the, the way that the company looks to the public, and how, the company looks to the people of Florida, as well as
Okay.
keep their autonomy and keep their, their finances good,
If
and as
Mm.
well as supporting their cast members. So
Okay. If,
there's multiple things I think that Disney's looking to do
oh
to.
yeah, absolutely. They've got to stay behind their employees 100%.
Mm-hmm.
But what they may have to do is, on the executive level, they may have to make some changes. Some changes that, when, what do you do when you have a horse? When you have what do you do to your enemy to stop your enemy? You cut off their head.
I was going to say, so you're bringing up one of the solutions right there.
Yeah, I know. I didn't want to, but
Sacrifices.
and I'm not calling for anybody to get fired.
I'm just saying that,
I'm not.
that's one of their potential approaches, is
Right.
sacrifice.
Right. You make wholesale changes or partial changes to your upper management team. Your upper management team then reaches out to the state of Florida, and they try to mend fences. They reach out to their employees and they try to assure them that they're behind them.
Which is
They
tough.
reach out to the public and they make amends with the public, and they do something for their guests that might have been turned off by all this.
There you go.
And
Make Genie Plus free.
yeah. Well, you know what? Oh God, have I got, I don't want to get into it now, but I've got stories to tell you about what I've been hearing about Genie Plus. Ooh, not good. But I'm not going to get into that now. That's one way to do. The other way would be, and they're not going to do this, would be to issue an apology. Do they need to issue an apology? Hell no, the damage is done. Was their stance wrong? The only thing I think Disney did wrong was coming out publicly with it. How do you fix that? And like I said, I can't think of anything short of making changes partially or wholesale in the executive management team to bring, you could use it under the, we're bringing in new players to see things in different ways. And I don't know how they're going to do it.
Well, and it's interesting.
I'm not that smart.
It's interesting. The rhetoric that I hear is, we're not going to let people from Burbank tell us what to do, when Disney's been moving a lot of their decision makers to Florida.
And that's what, and that's something Disney can do. You keep the parks here and you keep it at what you need to keep it at, and you move everybody else back to Burbank. You don't invest in Florida any more than you have to.
Yeah, I don't think
you're not going to do that, though.
Well, that's
they've already committed.
That's not smart business.
No, and they've already committed too much to the state.
Tourism would be very, very hurt.
And even if Disney wins in court, and let's assume they do win in court, is that going to change the public perception that they've had, not just from this, but since, March of 2020? It's going to be very difficult for them to get out of this. It's, and you brought up Genie Plus before without going into details. That's being criticized on several fronts by several guests. I don't care what their data showing them how people are enjoying it. The ones that are screaming the loudest and the ones you hear about are the ones that are not enjoying it.
I was in the park, what was it, last week, Friday, and a friend of mine wanted to know if we should get it. And I said, you take a look at it when you get here and you decide that day if you want to purchase it or not. Well, she very nicely told me that when she was looking at it for purchasing it for us, it didn't make sense because there was nothing really available. So that's something that we experienced together. So I said, no, then I don't think it's worth it.
Mm-hmm.
If we couldn't get anything until like 1:50 in the afternoon and then 9 o'clock at night, just didn't make sense.
Yeah.
So I think they should just go back to the old way of paper fast passes and be done with it.
Well, that's a topic for another day.
Yeah.
How does, I mean, John brought up a good point. Like, how does Disney get out of this mess? I think right now they're taking the road to court.
Well, I think that's going to be a component of it no matter what.
It's going to have to.
Yeah, that's definitely a component.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's no turning back now.
Well, there is. And there are alternatives. Will they work though? That's always a question. And I think right now they're for who they are right now, court is their probably their number one alternative, their number one route that they're going to take. It's their plan A. I don't think, I don't know if they've considered a plan B, if they have a plan C, but I think the stockholders are probably meeting and figuring out, okay, what do we do? There's probably been a lot of behind closed door meetings since this whole thing started.
I'm sure the board probably hasn't even gone home.
Yeah, probably. And it's a shame that it's come to this. It really is.
All of a sudden, out of the clear blue, it's just in the past couple, because of everything that's gone on in the past like 2 or 3 years.
The pandemic didn't help anything.
No.
It did nothing good for anybody.
People are all miserable.
Yeah, and people are looking to create failure. And who do you look at first when you want to create failure? You look at the person sitting on the top of the hill, and you want to trample them. So they topple, and they're the scapegoat, right or wrong. They're the scapegoat.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, there's been bad publicity for Disney over the last few years. There's been some good things. The 50th anniversary. And you want to look at the good rather than the bad. But when something like this happens, it just shines a magnifying glass on everything that's wrong.
Yeah, they're in the news cycle, but not for the reasons that they want to be.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When you're trying to get attention for the 50th, you're trying to get attention for Guardians of the Galaxy, Cosmic Rewind, the construction in Epcot and what's to come there, and more. Yeah. So, and that they keep trying to get the attention for those things, but then they have these major distractions.
Yeah. We love Disney, all of us here. There are a lot of fans out there that love Disney because of the joy it's brought us over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to see that continue and get better. And as Disney evolves with how they're bringing guest experience to the parks, we want to evolve with it. We want to be there for them. But there are a lot of guests that see when I say guests, there are a lot of people out there that are Disney fans, but they're not the passionate Disney fans. And they're like, well, all right, I got a vacation coming up. What if I don't enjoy it? Am I going to go back? Or people who are thinking about going, they'll go, oh, maybe we won't go there. Now let's wait for all this publicity to die down. Let's see what happens. People are thinking about moving here. I'll bet you some people, I hope it's not a lot, but I'll bet you some people are questioning whether they should move here. For those who are questioning it, and like I said, I hope it's just a few, Disney's not going anywhere. This Reedy Creek thing should hopefully and will hopefully be resolved. Maybe not so soon, but sooner than later. When I say later, it won't be like 2 years from now. I hope. We can't predict the future of what's going to happen tomorrow, but I think it's in the state's best interest, and I think it's in Disney's best interest to figure this thing out.
Dennis Greenberg.
So let's see what happens. Anybody want to add anything else? Is there anything you want to talk about regarding this topic that we haven't brought up and maybe we should?
I don't have something else to add right now.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything else to add either. I mean,
Yeah.
it's basically just a waiting game and a hoping game that they'll agree to disagree. And
Right now I think the ball is in Disney's court, literally.
Mm.
And where it goes from here, I think it's up to them. I think if they proceed to court, I don't know how fast they're going to be. I'm sure they're building their case to bring to court. And they're probably also working behind the scenes to try to get the governor to change his mind. I'm sure they're working different fronts to resolve this as best they can. I hope it's settled amicably without having to go to court. I hope they figure this thing out.
Yeah.
But I don't have good faith in that.
It's going to come down to litigation for deciding the future of
Reedy Creek.
God,
I hope not. I like I said, I hope they can figure this out without that happening. But
I would not bet that it would, personally.
Yeah, I would bet that it wouldn't either. But I'm not a betting person.
There you go.
So I'll sit back, enjoy the parks as much as I can, enjoy what everything Disney brings to me as a fan and to my family, and hope that that doesn't change no matter what happens. And I support the employees at Disney for everything that they've had to endure, and nobody should be discriminated against for any reason at any time, no matter what your persuasion is, the color of your skin. You know what? We're all created equally.
We are. That's for sure.
You know what? Some people may have a little more green in their pocket than others. That doesn't make them a better person than the person who has less. All right. Not a happy show this week. I'd love to hear the opinions of our listeners. There may be some that completely disagree with everything we discuss. And you know what? They have a right to. And that's okay. Well, I hope we'll come back. Well, we'll be back with a news show Darlene and I will be back on Tuesday with a news show.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be back later in the week with another topic. I promise it'll be a fun topic next week. And maybe, we can tell a few jokes and have a few laughs with our listeners and viewers. All right, everybody. Until next time. Well, let me say something a little differently. Let's have hope. Let's have faith. And let's hope the dreams continue. So until next time, be safe. Bye-bye.
I don't have a good song for this, but all I'm going to say is a big shout out and thank you to all of the cast members who invest their time and their talent every day to bring a smile and joy to the guests of Disney, whether, for whatever their role is, and, whether it's in the parks or elsewhere. Thank you so much, and keep doing what you do. Good night.
Well, all you need is faith, trust, and a little bit of pixie dust. And I hope you all have a magical night. Try not to let this bother you. See you real soon.